Guys, it's Mr. V over here doing a book review today for The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Now, before I go to my book review, I want you to know that I try to do a spoiler-free book review, so let's get into the book review for A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, this is book one, and it's a part of a 5-book series, and all the books are relatively short. While this book is thick, this is actually all 5 volumes, so each book is relatively short. To give you a reference, the audio versions are all about like 5.5 hours. So you can see it's not too long a book. It's almost like a mini story. That's the way I almost describe it. It's just about a 5-6 hour book. And I actually enjoyed the book that way. They had many short chapters in there, which I really enjoyed because it was very easy just to pick up the book, read a few chapters and put it down because it was very easy just when a chapter is only takes you 20 minutes to read, or some chapters are only 3 minutes. It's very easy just to pick up a few, get into the book for a bit, and be able to put it down. And I really enjoyed that part. It was a lot of fun. Now, this was definitely an interesting book because you don't fully know what the plot is. Even when you're partway through the book, you don't really know what the plot is. And even when I'm looking back upon the book, it still had a fairly thin plot overall. But there is something fun about the book. Despite having a fairly thin plot, there is something fun and you wanted to keep reading the book because it was a lot of fun. You are basically just following a couple of characters with a mix of like sometimes being on Earth and sometimes in space. Sorry to spoil that part for you, but you can tell from the title of the book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that you're going to go to space. So it's a mixture of both. And basically you just follow the characters in the challenges they face when they're on Earth or when they're in space. And the book jumps between the different characters. Just one thing you should be aware of is that sometimes it can just flip in a second in terms of you'll be following a character for like 2 or 3 chapters, their plot hasn't resolved yet, and you just flip to another character in a second, and you follow them for like 2 chapters, and you go right back to the other character, and sometimes it just flips in a second. It's not bad. It does fit, but you just should be aware of that. That was one thing that was a little odd. Sometimes it would just like change real quickly and then change back. So that was something that was a little weird. But you basically, as I said, you're just following some of the main characters, and you also how they run into like some of these like random weird space creatures, and it's not scary at all. It's more interesting. There's no horror to this at all. It's very interesting when he runs into these space creatures, and it's actually very funny on the type of thing they do. Like there's a lot of funny things with those weird space creatures, but there's also just many funny aspects to this book and many different funny stories that go on, and it was throughout the whole book. The type of humor, though, I saw it described online, is almost like a Monty Python type of humor. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm a Monty Python fan, but that's the best way I can describe the humor. I can't really describe it more than just Monty Python type of humor, because there are a lot of funny scenes throughout this whole book, because the author gives you a lot of great and like witty dialogue. There's a lot of dialogue in the book, but it's just like this witty type of dialogue where there were times that I actually laughed out loud when I was reading the book because it was funny and it was enjoyable. Now, I did listen to the audiobook as well, and I think that helps for the dialogue because that adds to it and it went well with the situations. And maybe that's a reason that I laughed out loud. But even when I was reading it, there was times where I just laughed out loud. And he just gives you a lot of funny situations and just I don't know. I can't say it without spoiling. He just does a lot of funny things in there. Now, while I did enjoy a lot of the book, there were a few things I did not like. One of the things I did not like was that things worked out too perfectly a few times when needed. Like when it was needed, things just worked out way too perfectly. And to me, it was just not in a creative sense. I thought he could have been a little more creative, especially with how creative he was in the book. He wasn't creative with how some things just like worked out perfectly. I'll give you a quick example. So you could say this is a minor spoiler, but I don't really think it's a spoiler. At one point, these space aliens are angry with these other people. They're going to shoot them out into space to kill them. And as soon as they're shot into space, another spacecraft just picks them up. It was instant, so they aren't killed. And even in the book, they were saying how when they're about to be shot out, they're like, you know, we're dead. It's impossible. We'll never be picked up. And instantly, someone picks them up. And there were a few other scenes that I won't go into where the same thing happened, where it was just a little too perfect and it wasn't really much creative aspect with it. It was just, oh, we got saved, or oh, this happens. Okay, now we can move on with the story. And again, that just happened a few times to where I was like, that part took away a lot from the story for me. And I know it's fiction, but sometimes when it works out a little too perfectly without it being creative at all, and then I'm like, yeah. But anyway, that was just one thing I disliked about the book, but there are still many funny aspects for this book. And I think that if you go into the book, you just go in and like don't have any expectations and know that this is going to be this like nice comedy and that's a short book, then I think you will enjoy it. I definitely would recommend this book for that aspect. And this is book 1 of the series, and I will continue the series. So let me give it my official rating right now. So I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10, with a 0 being an awful book, a 5 is an average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it's anywhere near 10, put it on your reading list because I'm a very tough critic, and a 5 is average. So for this book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I'm going to rate this book a 6. But it's a very solid 6. It almost got a little bit higher, but I'm going to rate it a 6. It may upset some people. I know some people just absolutely love this book, but it's still above the average of a 5, and I'm a very tough critic, so 6 is still a pretty solid book. But the reason I rated it a 6 was because while I did find it very fun and just very funny, I said the part of it working out a little too perfectly sometimes took away from the book, but there were some parts that just were not funny to me, and I know that it was meant to be humorous, but just some parts were not funny to me. A lot of the book was funny, but there were some parts that I was just like, couldn't get into it. But overall, I just thought it was still a very fun and quick read, which I really enjoyed, which is why I recommend you guys go out and read the book. But if you guys have any questions, you guys have any comments, please post it in the comment section below because I always love hearing your comments, your opinions. If you guys enjoyed the book review today, hit the subscribe button. I always upload multiple different book reviews. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy reading.